Recording in progress.
Hello, welcome to the June 1st, 2023 City Council meeting. I am City Council President Jim Nash, and I will be presiding this evening. Before we begin, I want to let everyone know that this meeting and all participating on Zoom and here in the room will be audio and video recorded. Tonight, City Council will consider the following important matters. We will discuss on second reading whether to approve Mayor Shera's fiscal year 2024 budget. We will discuss and refer to committee 5 ordinances concerning increased compensation for elected officials. We will also be reviewing Section 312-25 of the Code of Ordinances relative to trash hauling in commercial delivery vehicles. As always, I want to extend a special thanks to Northampton Open Media for their efforts to make this hybrid meeting possible. I now call the City Council to order. Laura, can you please take the roll call?
Sure. Councilor Elkins.
Here.
Councilor Foster.
Here.
Councilor Gore.
Here.
Councilor Jarrett.
Here.
Councilor Labarge. Here. Councilor Maori.
Here.
Councilor Moulton.
Here.
Councilor Nash.
Here.
And Councilor Perry.
Here.
Council President, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Laura. Okay. Next on the agenda is public hearings, and we have an announcement. We have an announcement of a public hearing on 11 Eversource petitions to install telemetry cabinets at various locations throughout the city. And item 23.280, Eversource petition to install regulator station on Prospect Street at Trumbull Road. Per the order of the City Council, the Northampton City Council will hold a public hearing by remote participation on Thursday, June 15th, 2023 at 6 p.m. on multiple Eversource petitions to install telemetry cabinets at various locations throughout the city, and on Eversource petition to install a regulator station on Prospect Street at Trumbull Road. Instructions for accessing the hearing via teleconference may be found on the June 15, 2023 City Council agenda to be posted on www.northamptonma.gov no later than 48 hours prior to the meeting. The City Council will hear all persons who wish to be heard thereon. And I'll read these locations just so people have a sense. So one is going to go near 215 South Street, another on Barrett at Jackson Street, another on Bridge Road at North Main Street, one on Chestnut Street at Bridge Road, Elm Street at North Elm Street, Hockenham Road at Pleasant Street, Marshall Street at Bridge Street, Hinckley Street at Nonotuck Street, Maple Street at Pine Street, North Maple Street at Bardwell Street, South Street at South Park Terrace. And links to what the proposals are can be found on tonight's agenda or on the agenda for this meeting on the 15th. So you can get further details on what's being proposed. Okay, that is done. And now we get to public comment. Let's see, how many folks do we have remote? Okay, well, we will now take public comment. If you are present in council chambers and want to make a public comment, please put your name on the sign-up sheet at the podium. So a few other people might have just arrived. If you want to speak, get on the list there. If you are remote and wish to make a public comment, please use the raise hand feature located on the bottom menu bar under reactions. on the Zoom screen. If you're calling by phone and you wish to make a public comment, you can raise your hand by hitting *9. If you're having trouble raising your hand, you may use the chat feature to send a message to Councilor Foster, who is helping manage the meeting remotely tonight, as a matter of fact. To ensure equal access, and because of open meeting law, technical problems such as not being able to raise your hand are the only thing the chat function is used for, and the chat function will only be available during public comment. We cannot accept comment over chat. Private chat or chat only visible on Zoom during a public meeting is antithetical to an open public process, in violation of the council rules for public participation, and violates the spirit and potentially the law of open meeting law. If you want to submit a written public comment, please email it to citycouncil@northamptonma.gov, and it will be sent to all councilors and will be part of the public record. I will recognize those who wish to speak by alternating between people on the sign-up list here in council chambers and the folks queuing up remotely on Zoom. Before you begin, please state your name and your city or town for the public record. To ensure everyone has an equal opportunity to speak, the council limits comments to 2 minutes. You are in no way obligated to use the full 2 minutes, but if you do, after 2 minutes, I will ask you to please finish your sentence. If you set your Zoom screen for gallery mode, you will see the blue sky timer indicating how much time each speaker has, and I think Isley's going to be able to bring up the blue sky timer up on the screens in here. According to the council rules, we do not respond during public comment, as it is your time to speak. So while your comment should be directed at us, you will understand when we do not respond. Our rules also state the councilors and members of the public shall conduct themselves with civility and respect at all times. Your protected speech is a constitutional right, and one that we ask you to wield with consideration and respect for all, and do so with the recognition that the public space that grants you that freedom is shared equally by everyone. Also, according to open meeting law, if someone is disrupting a meeting, they may be removed. You may speak on any topic. It doesn't need to be an item on the agenda. To those of you joining us remotely, I ask that all but the council turn off your video until called upon. Only the person recognized has the floor, and all comments are to be directed at us, the city council. All right. So.
You want that paper?
Yeah, that would, thank you, Counselor. So for hybrid, we start first with folks who are here in the room, and then we alternate between. We have John Meehan. Step up to the podium, and is the green light showing on the microphone there?
It is.
Okay.
I just want to make sure I'm getting the
You have the floor
timer.
and the blue sky timer. Let's see if we're going to see it. Oh, look at that. We can restart it, John. It's okay.
Thank you.
Whenever you're ready. I see you got some glasses there, too.
Ready as I'll ever be.
Okay. Don't step on your glasses.
Notable luminaries and concerned citizens, and with apologies to the Grinch who stole Christmas and also Andy Rooney. I'll try not to be too grumpy. I'm not a total dinosaur, but I'm really old school Northampton. We still like to think we're somewhat progressive as well as traditional. And I was raised by my family that all work was to be proud of, that no work was to be ashamed of, so I've really covered the bases in terms of everything from being intelligence, dubiously, in the military, and also have had a whole slew of jobs in my lifetime, even down to working the tobacco fields in Hadley and Hatfield here. And I've worked, traveled, been in college, the military, have traveled, partied, burned a few brain cells, but I'm probably not totally woke person. I'm not so virtually acclimated as people are today. getting down to something more practical, wow. I personally have an issue with voting at 16. I don't think that at 16 that it would be consistent with getting married or being in the military or being extracted for jury duty. And also, I hate to see the Broadway of the Berkshires, Main Street narrowed, because that's going to be a horror show with traffic and people backing and trying to get in and out of parking. And I think it's been an iconic place since the 1600s, and it would be a shame. I think they could stimulate commerce by bringing down the tax rate for the merchants, because rents are so off the charts high here. And that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Thank you, John. Okay, now we will go to remote and Amy Wilson-Kaling. Amy, are you there?
I am there.
Okay, we
There I
hear
am.
you. You have the floor.
Thank you. I'm Amy Kaling of Florence, Massachusetts. I am the Executive Director of the Downtown Northampton Association. However, I'm speaking tonight as a resident of Northampton and not in my capacity as Executive Director. I'm also speaking with 7 years of experience working with the downtown community, including business owners, social service providers, residents, and the police department. I fielded dozens of calls and attended dozens of meetings around policing and safety downtown, and have spent a significant amount of time working with both business owners and social service agencies, trying to find pathways that allow for the most empathetic approach to caring for everyone in our community, while making sure employees, patrons, visitors, and all residents feel safe and comfortable downtown. I'm speaking tonight in support of the FY 2024 General Fund budget, including in particular the Northampton Police Department's request add 3 additional FTEs at the student officer level, in the hopes of eventually moving away from the current practice of filling shift hours with overtired officers paid at overtime rates. I say this as somebody who's fully supportive of the Department of Community Care and the goal of shifting some of the work currently done by the police department to the DCC, building a culture where we as a community can care better for each other. Despite the DCC, there will remain instances, at least in my experience, where police support is necessary: motor vehicle accidents, thefts, instances of violence. And when those instances arise, I would hope we could have the best possible response from an officer working a reasonable shift supported by their department. These additional FTE positions will enable the department to plan ahead and manage their workload more effectively and in a more fiscally prudent way, at least until such time as the DCC has the opportunity to settle into its role. To allow a situation that we know is unsafe, unsustainable, and fiscally expensive to continue feels inappropriate, especially when the DCC has yet to get underway and their capacity and effectiveness is still an open-ended question. For these financial and safety reasons, I'm encouraging all of you to support the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. All right, next up is Tammy Supernaut.
Good evening. Before you start the timer, I just want to apologize for the speed in which I'm about to speak. I just found out I only have 2 minutes instead of 3. I thought I had 3, but I cut, and I will speak fast, and I apologize. My name is Tammy Supernat. I'm a resident of Ward 6. Full disclosure, I'm a civilian employee at the police department where I work as an administrative assistant, which I think gives me a unique perspective. I'd first like to say that I, like most people, am very happy to have the DCC in place to provide additional response options to people in crisis. I also look forward to the opening of our Resiliency Hub as a place for people to get help navigating social services. I don't, however, believe that the services provided by both the DCC and the Northampton Police Department are mutually exclusive. I believe that both are necessary in order to maintain a safe community. The issue of officer safety is a real one. I've seen up close on a daily basis the effect that being forced to work double shifts has on our officers. I've seen some come in at 3 in the afternoon for their shift, and they're sometimes still there the next morning when I come to work. It's not sustainable and not how we should treat city employees. I've watched council meetings go so late into the night that you've all had to end them early because you were so exhausted. I've seen you go till 11 o'clock. And while I appreciate the work that you do, and I don't mean to make light of it, there's a difference for a police officer who has to respond to a car accident, an overdose, a domestic, or God forbid, something worse. They need to have optimal judgment and decision-making skills, and those things can be negatively impacted by exhaustion and fatigue. We recently had a call come in that there was a shooter at the high school, 6 people in the bathroom had been shot. Hearing the urgency in the dispatcher's voice, I turned up the volume on the radio. It was frightening, but I was also in awe at the precision in which the officers communicated with one another as they systematically made their way through the building, clearing each hallway as they went. I later found out that the first to arrive on scene were inside the building within minutes of the call being dispatched. As it turned out, this was a swatting call, a fake call that came in the day after the shooting in Nashville, and while there was no credible threat, the officers had no idea when they entered the building. They were just focused on keeping people safe. Should a real event like this ever happen in our community, I would hope that our department would be fully staffed with officers who are alert and ready to respond. For these reasons and many more, I'm in total support of Chief Casper's budget. Adding 3 line items for student officers would simply allow the hiring process to begin in a more timely manner, given the length of time that it takes for someone to go through the hiring process, the police academy, and the field training program. It's clear to me that this is the most pragmatic way for new officers to be hired and be available to fill empty positions. It also makes sense to keep overworked, exhausted officers off the streets and have fresh personnel in place. Because filling vacancies will also reduce the need for shift overtime, it is the fiscally responsible thing to do as well. The last point I'd like to reiterate, this will not add additional patrol officers to the police force, but simply allow the hiring process to begin sooner in preparation to fill vacancies for positions that already exist. I hope you all can support this budget for our community. Thank you for your time.
Cutting you off.
You just bought a piece of art, I think.
Okay. Next up is Jacqueline McCreener. Welcome, Jacqueline.
Hi, good evening. Thank you, Council President Nash. I'm Jacqueline McCrainer of Northampton. I would like to mention 2 topics this evening. The first is that there will be an in-person meeting in council chambers to discuss affordable and attainable housing in Northampton on June 13th at 6:00 p.m. From my understanding, it is a collaboration between the Northampton Planning Department, the Housing Partnership, and CHAPA. Residents are eager to participate at this event since Northampton needs more affordable and attainable housing, and we're still very much interested in a 3rd roundtable discussion at a future community resources meeting to talk about preserving our existing workforce housing and constructing new workforce housing. The second topic I would like to discuss is in regard to the Main Street corridor and intersections redesign in downtown Northampton. I strongly urge the City Council to conduct 2 different trial runs, which proved to be an invaluable thing to do back in 2020. I advocate that the first test run should be based on the plans for the redesign once it has reached perhaps the 75% design development phase. And I advocate that the second test run be based on keeping everything pretty much as is, including the 130 parking spaces on Main Street, and then what would be new would be to paint fresh, new, clearly painted lines on the street for 2 lanes of traffic moving in each direction on Main Street, as well as adding new signage for vehicular, cyclist, and pedestrian safety. So again, I strongly urge a 3rd roundtable discussion to address the preservation of the city's existing inventory of workforce housing, as well as the construction of new workforce housing. And I'm strongly urging the council to conduct 2 different trial runs ahead of the actual Main Street redesign in downtown Northampton. Thank you. Oh, and I support what the first 3 folks have brilliantly said already. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jackie. And next up is Penny Geis.
I actually read the budget, and so the first thing I want to do is thank all of you who worked on it and put it together, because I appreciate keeping the city fiscally sound. That's been something I've bragged about in many other cities.
Name and city and town.
Oh, Penny Geis, I'm a Northampton resident, I live in Leeds. And the one thing in the budget that I was not happy to read was that we are losing police officers. We've been losing police officers for years. One reason is that we have a reputation for providing excellent training. And so other police departments, including the State Highway Patrol, as soon as our people are trained, they snag them away at much higher prices. I'm all for keeping the good training, but we have to pay a reasonable rate if we're going to keep our police officers. The same goes for everybody who works for the city, and the police officers are no different. We need them just like we need good roads and good schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Penny. I see new people have entered council chambers. If people want to speak, is there another sign-up sheet there? Here, yeah, if you could put that up, back up at the podium. And we have a remote comment, and then we'll be back in the room. Mahajoy? Did I screw your name up? I apologize.
Yes, you did, but that's okay.
Welcome.
It's Mahajoy. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me at this meeting. My name is Mahajoy Lawfer, and I live in Burskert Road. I'm not sure what ward that is. I'm a therapist, and I'm from here, so I grew up here. I'm almost 40, so I am 40, but I've been here for a little less than that. And I graduated from schools not in Northampton, but I would like to talk about asking you all to consider defunding the police by 10% and invest more in social programs and other diversion programs in the community. And why that's important to me is because I've seen, as a mental health worker, the importance of giving to the community, helping people address larger system needs, and that there's a high need for mental health help. And I think the response from the police is often not adequate. And I think that when we put more money into the community, we have a stronger way to help people, especially of color, people who are marginalized. And I'd really like to see the mayor also put more money into helping the community and invest in the working class community and in centers that are supportive, and take away the police budget by 10%. That's what I would like to say. So I thank you for this opportunity, and that's all. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Okay. I'm going to need my list. I found I have another one here. Okay, next up is Lemmy Coffin.
City councilors and Mayor Chiara, we are delivering to you on the evening that you vote how to allocate the city's communal resources for this fiscal year, a gift from community members. We present to you headlines from the future. We presented the community with a blank newspaper from the future and asked them to write headlines that they wish to come into reality. What you see before you are from the hearts and imaginations of community members who dream of a Northampton that is truly a safe place for all of its community members, not just the affluent and white. For us, a police-free future is the only way to create true public safety for everyone, and the only way to create a city who cares for all of its residents instead of protecting the interests of a few. Police have never and will never keep us safe. Affordable housing, good public transit, and bike lanes, dignified jobs, someone to call in times of crisis who we don't fear, conflict resolution, affordable health care, access to green space for everyone. These are the kinds of things that keep us safe, not police. As you deliberate on this fiscal year budget, we hope you remember that, as MLK said, the budget is a moral document. If you vote for Mayor Chiara's pro-police budget, which increases policing in Northampton while starving other social services, you will be betraying the community members in Northampton who need your support the most. We hope that instead you will use your power to move Northampton in a different, better, more just direction. A direction which actually cares for its BIPOC and poor and working class community members. A direction that invests in care and support instead of criminalization and punishment. The choice is yours. Do you choose a budget that invests in violence or a budget that invests in life, in true community safety and care?
Thank you.
We're from the future, that's why.
The future looks cool. All right.
Thanks, please continue. I'm doing a meeting.
Okay, I don't see anybody else queuing up remotely, so I'm going to stay here in the room. Next up is Richard. I can't get the last name. Oh,
That's me.
name and city or town?
Richard Paiva, P-A-I-V-A, Northampton resident. I'm here today. This is my first time in front of all of you. I would like to just address something that I brought up to the attention to one of the people on the city council of the language of some of the officers that they have on their languages out of their mouth. I don't think it's really fair for them to use vulgarity when they use their job on the street, when they come across people on the street. I'll give you an example, like if I'm walking the street, has a liaison, me, an advocate for the city's homeless, nobody should be number one swore at anything. We have visitors that come here, right? We have people from out of town, and then we have a lot of kids. And it really disturbs me. It really teases me off. It really does. And it eats my soul when I go at home. I don't sleep very well either in the city where I live. I live at the Savo House. What a nightmare. I think they need security in that building, and it should have that. Some of the seniors in that building, they need to be rightly protected in their own way. And they're not being really told what they need to be having done for them. Some people that come in that building go in and out all day. And when you call the police, they come and they slap people on the wrist. And I don't think the management of that place is doing a really good job. I'm not going to mention any names. I don't throw any stones, but I carry a lot of boulders on my back. And I don't get home sometimes until 2:30 in the morning. And I continue to see people on the street sleeping indoor in front of businesses. And what do? I try to save their life. And this is what I tell them. You save your life, you don't take your life. So I've been there, I know what I'm talking about, and if you want to talk to me after, I'll be glad to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. Okay. I don't see anybody queuing up remotely. Is there somebody else in the room?
I'm sorry, you missed me from the list. I'm Jennifer Ewers.
Oh, Jennifer, I'm sorry. Please step up. You get last.
You saved the best for last.
That's right.
So my name is Jennifer Ewers. I'm a proud Florence resident, and I'm speaking tonight in support of the mayor's budget, specifically to include the addition of 3 officers for upcoming vacancies. I introduced myself intentionally as a proud resident. I'm very proud to have read last week that 3 of our police officers, Officer Cole, Officer Bunce, and Detective Cook, were awarded for their exceptional service to our community during some very serious calls. While we never know what the next emergency call will bring, there is data that shows the danger of holding officers for additional shifts. Officer fatigue and driving while drowsy are legitimate safety concerns to the police officers and to the community at large. Studies show the ill effects of being continuously awake. As I read about Detective Cook's and Officer Bunce's de-escalation of a person in crisis who was suicidal and had firearms during a terrifying call in 2021, I am so grateful for their judgment and their patience. Clearly, they brought their A game to that emergency call. Please support the mayor's budget, which will fill the upcoming vacancies in the police department, because we might be the ones making that next emergency call.
Thank you, Jennifer. All right. Anybody else want to give it a shot? Your thoughts are welcome. And I don't see anybody else on the Zoom. Okay. So my computer's still restarting, so we're going old school paper. So, no, we're good. Do we have any announcements from counselors and the mayor's office?
Mayor's on her way. She'll be here any second.
Oh, cool. All right.
On route. She just handed out the last diploma in the last 15 minutes, and she will be here in just a second.
The mayor is up at Smith Folk for the graduation.
She has some pretty exciting announcements, if there's any way to hold some space.
Well, hopefully she's not speeding on her way here, but I'm sure counselors can think of plenty of announcements in the meantime. Counselor Jarrett.
Thank you, Councilor Nash. There are two events in Ward 5 this weekend that I wanted to share. The first is that the Hill Institute on Pine Street will have their annual exhibition. So we'll get to see arts and crafts work by their students from throughout the year. So that's Friday, June 2nd from 5:30 to 8 p.m. and Saturday, June 3rd from 9:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. And you can find out more hillinstitute.com. The other is that the Bay State Village Association has their annual tag sale, and so they're throughout, on Saturday and Sunday, throughout Bay State Village, there will be tag sales that you can find more information about that at baystatevillage.org. There's a map out there that shows you where all of the tag sales are. So those two things are coming up.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Perry.
Well, Councilor Jarrett, I will see your two things and give folks a couple more than that. First is June 10th, Forbes Library is having their garden tour. I think it's the 29th annual. Tickets are on sale or available only at the library. So please go out and see that. And then I'm very excited that we've got our Summer on Strong series that already started, as well as today we started a brand new series, which is tentatively called Garage Bands, but that is right by the Northampton Brewery. It's happening right now. And then also Masonic Street Live will be active as well. So there are plenty of opportunities to go out and enjoy some outdoor seating, some music, and support local talent.
Thank you. They actually renamed it Bands on Brewster. That's what's cool. And then Monty Belmonte poked the mayor for not calling it Punky Brewster.
Do that.
Any other announcements?
Well, just a clarifying question. I heard there's going to be salsa too. Is that true?
Yes, there will also be salsa in the park, right over here in Pulaski Park.
And that's a weekly event?
Weekly, every Monday, I believe. Wait, is it Monday?
So I'm not sure the frequency in the park, but there's Sunday nights actually at Masonic. There will be lessons for how to dance salsa for several events. And I can pull up the schedule if you want, but there's in the park will be the big band again. So learn how on Sunday night and then head over to the park to show off your stuff.
It used to be Friday night on salsa over at the bar.
Sorry.
Councilor Jarrett.
Florence will not be outdone. Florence has, starting actually tonight, June 1st through August 31st, I believe, on Thursday. Thursday nights, there will be bands on the Civic Center lawn, right in downtown Florence. And that's free.
And you all contributed to being a diamond level sponsor of those concerts, the city of Northampton, thanks to some of the money appropriated for outdoor entertainment this year.
Okay.
You're going to hear from Leeds?
Yeah, we've got a sibling rivalry. So I'm going to give a very vague update on the Commission to Study Racialized Harms. We've got 31 applications, and of the 31, 20 have requested interviews. And right now, we're trying to figure out how to hold those 20 interviews where we have representation from the mayor's office and from the sponsors and myself, and but we're working on the logistics of that. Councilors Perry and Councilor Gore, who got back to me, those plans are off. So, but we are working to get that moving forward. I think COVID was a factor at our meeting a few weeks back, where we agreed to things. So anyway, the other thing is, councilors, that we are, there's that meeting on the 15th where we're going to start at 6 o'clock. So I'm not expecting all of the councilors to be there. It's a hope that we can all be there so we can deal with this long list of petitions. Right now, we're at quorum, and there's a few of you who haven't responded yet. If you could let Laura know of your availability. I'd like to have 6 councilors committed for starting at 6, and then we'll move into our regular council agenda at 7 o'clock that evening. Councilor Labarge.
Councilor, I thought we were doing Zooming on the 15th.
We will, this is our last hybrid until September. The next 3 meetings are scheduled to be remote.
June 15th.
June 15th,
July and August.
13th, and
Okay,
then
so
our...
are you saying you need 6 counselors to be here at 6 o'clock, then we go back home and do Zoom?
No, I'm sorry. When I say here, I'm talking about the meeting, the virtual, we're going to be virtual, so we need 5 to have quorum to approve the petitions and that are to hold the public hearing. And then, but I'd like to have 6.
I'm on.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Any other announcements while the mayor race is here? Okay. We still have the consent agenda, so the mayor can take her time. We have the minutes of the May 18th, 2023 meeting. We have item 23.328, application for supervised display of fireworks from Northampton Family Fourth Committee. We have item 23.315, in order to approve FY 2023 budgetary transfers. This is in second reading. We have item 23.330, applications for secondhand dealer licenses. We have a new business, everything but comics, and then we have a reapplication for born again, vintage, and consignments. And that is the consent agenda. Are there any requests for removal? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Labarge, seconded by Councilor Moulton. Laura, roll call, please, on the consent agenda.
Councilor Elkins.
Yes.
Councilor Foster.
Yes.
Councilor Gore.
Yes.
Councilor Jarrett.
Yes.
Councilor Labarge.
Yes.
Councilor Maori.
Yes.
Councilor Moulton.
Yes.
Councilor Nash.
Yes.
And Councilor Perry.
Yes.
Okay, the consent agenda has been approved, and we are now on to financial orders. The first one here, I think Director Nardi is ready to speak to this. This is item 23.239, in order to appropriate stabilization funds to Memorial Hall, envelope repairs, and roof replacement. This is in first reading, and perfect timing. Director Nardi, you want to speak to this? I can't pull it up. I'd read it. Give me a minute and I'll be able to.
Did I start?
Yeah,
So
go
good
ahead.
evening, thank you. So this order is $275,000. This was part of the capital improvement program plan that you approved back in March. Originally, the funding was going to be from cash capital, which is actually part of the FY 2024 budget. But after looking at the budget, speaking with Director McCarthy, and wanting to get this project moving forward, we took it out of the FY 2024 budget, and the mayor is presenting it coming from stabilization. The reason for this was also our stabilization fund has reached the 5% that we talk about, which is our policy, which is when we start thinking about using the stabilization funds and not continuing to have them grow. So the projects themselves, they're both for Memorial Hall. The exterior envelope repairs, just to remind you, is to address the deferred maintenance. The work will include the repointing of lower sections of the perimeter and the front stairs. This will also deal with the groundwater that flows into the building since Pulaski Park has been built. The second project, which is the asphalt roof on Memorial Hall, that roof has leaked and has had small repairs, but basically the roof has outlived its expected lifetime, and so we would like to repair that. So that's what this $275,000 request is in front of you.
Councilors, any questions? I got to watch for Councilor Foster because she's... So these are these are projects already approved, that we've already approved in the SIP.
Yes, yes, they are actually in the SIP. They were presented by Director McCarthy. We're just bringing them forward to you with funding from the stabilization fund.
And the original identified source was what?
Cash capital,
Okay.
which you will see another order for cash capital projects, which were also approved as part of the SIP. And we can't bring, they will be presented to you at your next June meeting for an actual vote in July. You have to vote the budget first, and then we have to be within the fiscal year in order to vote cash capital projects. And Director McCarthy is excited to move forward with these projects with architects as soon as possible, if you choose to vote positively.
And this is, and you're not asking for 2 readings?
I am not.
Okay. Thank you. Councilors, any questions? Any thoughts on a motion? This is a financial order and first reading, so it can go to the consent agenda or to finance.
I move we refer to the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Elkins. I had a hand in that.
Prompted by Councilor Labarge.
And it's seconded by Councilor Labarge. Any discussion on sending this to the consent agenda? Hearing none. Laura, roll call, please.
Councilor Foster.
Yes.
Councilor Gore.
Yes.
Councilor Jarrett.
Yes.
Councilor Labarge.
Yes.
Councilor Maori.
Yes.
Councilor Moulton.
Yes.
Councilor Nash.
Yes.
Councilor Perry.
Yes.
And Councilor Elkins.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so that item 23.239, in order to appropriate stabilization funds to Memorial Hall envelope repairs and roof replacement, will appear on the consent agenda of our next meeting. All right, give me a second here I'm almost there. For those of you who are watching me, you ever have your computer reboot at an inconvenient time? So, all right, here we go. Financial orders. The mayor is here. And next up on the agenda is an order to approve the FY 2024, oh, no, that's not it. Here it is. 23.316, in order to approve FY 2024 general fund budget. This is in second reading. Councilor Jarrett.
Thank you. So I have a conflict of interest with one line item of this budget, and as a member of the Pedal People Cooperative, which has a pre-existing contract with the Central Services Department. So Council President has agreed to accommodate this by dividing the motion. So I'll return at that point to participate in a discussion about everything in the general fund except that item.
Thank you, Councilor. Okay. Yeah.
If I recall, I think the mayor might have had some public announcements that we kind of skipped. I don't know if we want to.
You know what? Let's get this ball rolling, and then we'll have some announcements. How's that? Because this is about to get complicated. So now I will entertain a motion to put discussion of the general fund budget on the floor.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Labarge, seconded by Councilor Maori. This is now on the floor, and I will now entertain a motion to divide the question, which would allow us to discuss the general fund budget without the parking division and maintenance OM budget.
Move to divide the question.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Maori, seconded by Councilor Moulton to divide the question and remove the parking division maintenance OM budget. Any discussion on this? Hearing none. Laura, roll call, please.
Councilor Gore.
Yes.
Councilor Jarrett is recused. Councilor Labarge.
Yes.
Councilor Maori.
Yes.
Councilor Moulton.
Yes.
Counselor Nash,
Yes.
Counselor Perry,
Yes.
Counselor Elkins,
Yes.
and Counselor Foster.
Yes.
Okay. So we now have on the floor the general fund budget without the parking division maintenance OM budget. Is that correct, Laura? We're there?
That's correct. It's on the floor for discussion.
Meaning that Counselor Jarrett can now rejoin us if he would like. For the general, we're discussing the general fund budget without the parking division maintenance OM budget. All right, counselors, any thoughts on the general fund budget, less that parking division line? Counselor Jarrett.
I just love going first.
Glad somebody did.
So yeah, thank you all for accommodating my conflict of interest. I had a question, so getting into the question of the police budget and the 3 student officer positions. I had a question about overtime. I was trying to understand how, when these officers, if this passes and these officers become fully trained sometime in fiscal year 25, how will that impact our overtime budget? In other words, how much overtime are we expecting to save versus the additional cost of, these 3 positions? Is that something that you have an idea about, or is it?
First of all, good evening, everybody. Sorry to arrive late. I was at Smithfield graduation, so congratulations, class of 2023. So I don't have a number for you, but this isn't going to solve the overtime problem immediately, of course, because we have to get this group through training. But what it will do is allow there to have vacancies filled more quickly, and reduce the number of shifts that need to be filled with overtime. So I think the hope would be that we would be able to stay more within the overtime budget, as opposed to right now. I think we're at 181% for this fiscal year.
Right, and as you, I also thank you very much for talking with me and getting answers from the fire chief, the police chief, Director Nardi. As you pointed out, the question, let's see, so that, right, the overtime, sorry, I'm missing, yeah, I'm trying to find my note about this. So right, these positions won't come into play until fiscal year 25. But
well, so this will allow us to start hiring for vacancies, but the people won't sort of graduate from being a student to actually being an officer serving until 14, 18 months.
Right.
Yeah. I think, are you done, Councilor Jarrett?
I'm done for now.
Oh, okay.
Happy to go with other questions. I do have more to say, but
Thank you.
go ahead.
Mayor,
If
I have
it's
gotten
okay.
calls on
Yeah.
this. On the student officer positions.
Yeah.
Okay, we're looking at 52,592, correct?
That sounds right. I will open it up.
Now, the vacancies on it, that was their original pay, correct?
So this would be the pay for a student officer.
At 52,
Correct.
okay. What can they do and not do? That was another question that I'm hearing from residents. I mean, they can't go out and do parole because they've not gone through training.
Right.
Right, so
Well,
what
they're
are they
going-
gonna actually be doing?
They will be going through training. So as Chief Casper spoke about the other night, for some, it will make sense for them to come and do some kind of desk duty that, which gets them more familiar with the department, gets the department more familiar with them. But they'll be in the academy for some of it. For some of it, they'll be in field training. But they will be able to do some kind of duty that, like civilian duty,
Okay.
which has been the case anyway.
There's some confusing going on with this.
Okay.
Because the way that people are hearing is that they're gonna be like in the administrative office helping out and so forth like that. But that they would not be attending the training until after these 3 vacancies are being filled. That's why I'm talking to you about this, so you can clarify this.
Sure.
I told them, I said, no, that's not right here. So that's why I'm asking you to present it tonight of exactly what the student officer can do, and are they going to be doing training at that same time, at the 52,000, whatever?
Yes, so that they will be in that training period. So there's background checks that happen, then there's the academy that happens, there's a field training. So the academy and field training alone is about, I think it's about 10 months.
Okay, because I had several people, even before tonight, before I came to council, who had great concerns about, as a counselor, making sure that I support this budget tonight. And they did know that I did support this in Finance Committee to make a positive recommendation to City Council. So I just wanted to verify all this so that heads are straightened out there. Okay,
Sure,
because they're asking, can they do parole? Are they going to be driving cruisers? And I said, I did not think that.
So we already have folks who serve in this role. What this is doing is creating a space in the budget for that. So when we see a vacancy coming up, we can start that very long hiring process.
Right, that's not,
that process happens anyway, but if we don't have the space in the budget to begin it, let's say we know someone's going to retire at the end of the year.
Gotcha.
We could start that process now for that retirement that we see coming up. Right now, we can't do that. We have to wait till the retirement party,
Yeah.
and then it's 16, 18 months until that person can serve. So this is creating room for that.
How long is the academy?
I believe the academy is
it 11 months or something like that?
5 to 6. That's 6. Thank you. Yeah, 5 or 6 months.
It's a long time.
It is. It's a long time. And then field training is another 4 months.
Well, the way I feel about this, we're looking at safety here in the city of Northampton. And the calls that I get from residents in Ward 6 and in the city about not seeing the visibility of cruisers anymore coming through the wards, and the amount of speeding, which Chief Jody Casper did talk about Ward 6. It's awful out there.
Right.
And and we have our police officers now, the overtime, they're getting burnt out. And when you're looking at 3 vacancies, if this continues, they'll be on medical leaves. And we're going to be really in trouble here.
Yes, we need to be able to fill our shifts. And we want
Exactly.
people to be
I'm with you
fresh
on
and
that,
ready to
ma'am.
work. So, Counselor, may I go back to Counselor Jarrett's question?
Go right ahead.
Yes. So the thing I was reaching for was that currently, the reason that the overtime budget can be 180% is because there are vacancies.
Correct. Right.
And that money is coming from those.
Right. So ideally, what this will create is, or what this will eliminate, are all of those shift overtime hours that we'll be able to reduce those down. So the overtime hours where you have someone who has to fill in, do a double shift because there is a vacancy. If we can remove those giant lag times where there are vacancies, then we can eliminate or at least cut down considerably on those shift hours. Those shift overtime hours, which are at time and a half versus regular time.
Oh, you're all
Go ahead.
done?
Go ahead.
Hold on. So are you guys finished?
No.
They're going to tag team it.
Yeah, I'm I'm fine.
I just have
You're good. I just wait, you
one
both
more
are going at the
question.
same time. I just want to make sure.
It's okay.
It's okay.
You're set out?
Just pull right up.
Okay. I
One more
appreciate the
one more
eagerness of council.
question.
You got it. You have all the questions you want.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Mayor, the overtime, what shift is the problem here? Is it second shift and getting held over on third?
Yeah, it's every shift. So it's wherever if there can be vacancies at any of these shifts. So it's any of the.
Well, I feel second shift, then you're held over on third. That is really bad.
Well, I guess it depends on what shift you're used to
Because
working,
you're up all night.
Well, anytime you're working 16 hours, I mean, I'm at, I don't know, 13
40, 80.
today, maybe. I'm like halfway through a second shift right now, and
I'll call you at nighttime.
So, any time you're working a double shift, that's a lot of hours, and
It
particularly
is,
with
big time.
these positions.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is a feisty side.
Pull up, honey.
Counselor Gore.
So just for clarification, so the student officers are, they're not like patrol officers?
Correct.
But they're going to be replacing patrol officers like in when they get out of the academy?
Well, after the academy, they then have to go through field training. So they will be replacing people who are retired or who have left or who are out on injury, who are officers. So a vacancy for one of the patrol officers once they have completed all of their training.
So this is so that the chief doesn't have to go through the hiring process with somebody new when she has a vacancy, like start from scratch.
Correct. And so you don't have to wait with an open vacancy as that whole process goes through, that you can start moving someone through earlier in the process when you see a vacancy is coming.
Oh, so it's kind of like having somebody on hold almost.
Yeah, on hold, but doing the training they need to then step up and be sworn in.
Okay, I see.
Counselor
Then
Counselor Foster.
But how will we know the difference?
I just, you're here, I think, and she's not.
Fair enough, fair enough. So first of all, I understand that that the projected vacancies right now are 3, and that matches the 3, but that Chief Casper said at the Finance Committee meeting that was a little bit of happenstance. Is it ever the case that these student police, these student officer positions could kind of get ahead of the vacancy, like where we have filled all 3 of them, sent them all through training, and then for whatever reasons a vacancy isn't there for them at the end of that training, and so then we're in the position of having to move them to patrol officer in sort of in excess of the positions we already have, or do we have a plan for sort of dialing that back? Because that seems both unfair if we can hire somebody for this and then get there and they're like, sorry, there's not a vacancy. It seems to me that because we're on kind of an 18-month cycle, that we shouldn't find ourselves ahead of the projection, but is that anything that you've talked about with Chief or that's been sort of anticipated?
Yeah, so, we have had more vacancies than 3. So having looked at the past few years, this is going to help the problem. This might not not always fill all the vacancies. But having looked at the data for the past few years, the chief felt confident that there's going to be at least 3 vacancies that she will be able to foresee are coming. And there may be others that happen, but this was sort of a way to kind of work on this problem right now. So, if we got to that place, we would assess whether, we needed to change how many. But I think it's not something she's particularly concerned about. And also, we could just not fill one of these vacancies. If she saw that was the situation, then we just wouldn't we wouldn't hire someone else. to start the process.
Counselor Foster.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and that actually that exchange, Councilor Elkins, that you and Mayor Sherrod just had was, I think, an important clarification or just an important point I wanted to make as we're considering this budget, that we go through this process every year. And so there is this opportunity to look and see, you know, are we having more vacancies, are we having fewer? But what we vote on tonight is for the upcoming fiscal year. This isn't, you know, sort of a permanent change, but also, you know, I do see the sort of fiscal and human resources wise benefits to this choice. So as we're looking at the budget, I guess I was going to lead into broader comments, but just to say that I appreciate, and I know I said this before, all of the work that has gone into presenting this budget and bringing it together. You know, and that's for the whole general fund budget. You know, I see the benefits of bringing in 3 student officer positions, as Chief Katz first pointed out, and for as long as I've been involved in this process, even prior to joining council, since I've been following it, vacancies have been a challenge for the police department. And you know, I know that the holdovers of shifts is something we've heard about in healthcare, and was contributing and has been contributing to burnout of healthcare providers, and to hear that that's happening in the police department. And this is one step we can take to potentially start to reduce the amount of not only of overtime, which has been pointed out as 1.5 times a base rate salary, but also that's leaving officers in a position of, you know, being on patrol or having to make what we all expect are going to be really good decisions in high pressure situations, perhaps on their 15th hour of work. And not only is that not sustainable for the officers, but it's not good for our city. And so, you know, just looking broadly, I know we're all anxious to see the Division of Community Care up and running. I'm pleased to see the support, you know, that is integrated into the Department of Health and Human Services. You know, our understanding is that they're expected to hopefully be answering calls and starting to have a really public presence in September. I know it's something that we're all anxious for, and I'm glad to see that support. I do intend to support this shift with the policing budget. My hope is that long term, if we're able to see student officers or officers move through the training process more quickly, a reduction in overtime, I think would be a net gain for the city. So that makes a lot of sense to me. Also wanted to mention that I appreciate that DPW has had an increase in traffic calming budget, you know, priorities moving forward. You know, there's the pot's only so big, but we'd love to see traffic calming grow. That's something that we just hear from residents in all pockets of the city with concerns regarding traffic in their neighborhoods and not feeling safe. But I am pleased to see that has been growing. So I just wanted to call that out, as well as plan of action work that the city is doing. I think it was a really important point that the mayor's office made in the introduction to the budget, that you know, sort of in the absence, particularly in the last, you know, maybe 6 to 8 years of state and federal action on climate and other initiatives, how much we're investing in our local governments and asking our local governments to do. And I believe it's the right time and the right thing to be stepping up to meet challenges as we can. So I'm glad to see that in there. And then the final point, as the superintendent was presenting the school's budget, I found that to be an incredibly interesting discussion. And what I think is one of the most compelling issues with our schools, or that we talk about on our city budget as a whole, is the amount of funding we lose to charter schools sending tuition. And it was, I think, a really interesting and challenging discussion to hear, you know, anecdotally, that it seems that many families with children are never entering Northampton schools, that are choosing to send students to charter schools beginning at kindergarten with siblings, younger siblings then to follow. And so I see that as a real challenge and a real opportunity for us to address with our budget in coming years is I know that there's a lot of local initiatives, school local, and a lot of, focus on that. But it sure seems like there's an incredible opportunity to somehow keep students from ever needing, from the students that don't ever enter our district, to try to get them in the door in the district, and would be good for our city's enrollment, and reduce what we're spending in charter school sending tuition. So I guess that's probably the $2.5 million question, but just wanted to put that out there as I think a high priority for us as a city to be looking at that. And then just wanted to reiterate my support for the budget and gratitude to the mayor's office and the mayor, all the department heads for the thought and care that's going into this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Foster.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Muir.
Yeah, I just have some questions. So when the overtime amount that you gave us, that's voluntary and mandatory overtime together?
The 431, average 431 hours? Yes. And the chief had a slide that showed the difference between the two.
Part of that is, the voluntary overtime. And the student officers, I just want to clarify something you said. If the student officer being trained at becoming a full-fledged officer, I guess, in terms of duties, and stepping in for an injured officer.
No, if someone is, let's say someone is out on like extended leave, like years-long leave for an injury, yeah. We lose people for multiple reasons, or people are.
But we'd still be paying, so you're adding an officer then? I mean, if it's an officer, if it's not a vacancy, but it's an officer on leave, and you're bringing in another officer to replace them, then you have two officers where there used to be one, correct?
We don't have more than what we have budgeted for, so.
Okay, all right, because that's what you saying. And, turnover, so the student officers, what Chief Casper said during the hearings was that, thank you, I totally forgot. What Chief Casper said during the hearings was that that the student officers don't have any lower turnover than anyone else. And in fact, being younger, they might have higher turnover. So there's nothing to oblige these student officers after we pay them, just like the academy. There's nothing to oblige them to take these positions. We're counting on the fact that they're going to fill those positions if we pay them long enough. But
that's always been the case.
Right.
This doesn't change that in any way.
You want $160,000 to do it, more. It's always been the case, but now you want to add $160,000 a year in salaries for the same problem.
So they would be paid regardless. This is not a new thing for them to be paid during this period. They would always be paid. There just wouldn't be, that's why we'd have to wait for there to be a literal vacancy for them to then start the process, because they are paid through this process regardless.
Yeah, and there's no way to oblige them to take.
There really is not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, okay. It does, the thing is.
I've asked these questions too.
Yeah,
you can't sign a contract with them or sort of force them to stay.
Let me just see my other questions too. Okay. But the difference is we are then moving the dial, we're establishing a new norm for the budget for the police department. It will become the norm to have it be, the trajectory will be, and because their salaries, there will be cost of living, so they will, by their nature, they will go up every year. And in fact, in 3 years, we will spend $500,000.
So again, this is no different than how it is now. We are just creating that space to do this so that we can spend the money wisely this way instead of on overtime a time and a half.
But there's no, but as you said, the student officers aren't going to help with overtime. And the hope is that they will eventually become officers.
They will help with, it's not going to be an immediate, July 1st this is going to solve the problem, because we have to get people through. But if we can continually start to get people through, and so if we don't start this now, then we're still a year away from starting this, right? So if we start this now, then once we can get this group through and have that continual space to allow people to go through the academy and train, then we can bring down that shift overtime.
Well, right. You're saying that we cannot fund them at the same level that we're funding them now if we change.
I don't understand your question.
I didn't understand your answer. So you're saying over time, what will happen? You said overtime.
So the goal is to reduce shift overtime, right? So overtime where someone's either being forced to be held over or they are choosing to take that overtime. But it's the space and shifts because there are vacancies. So because of vacancies, we don't have enough available officers to fill the shifts. We have to fill the shifts, so either we say, hey, there's overtime available, you can choose to take it. If no one chooses to take it, then we have to force people to take it.
Right.
So the goal is to reduce the spaces in those shifts by not having as much vacancy.
Right. But, I mean, I hear the problem. The solution seems, definitely not direct. Like, we don't know that these student officers, we can invest in this, but, just like you said, there's no obligation for them to take these shifts.
No, I don't understand. What do you mean?
They don't have to become up. They don't have to fill those vacancies. Eventually.
I mean, they choose to apply for this position. They choose to go through the academy. If they make it through the academy, that's no small accomplishment to make it through the academy. It's no small accomplishment to make it through field training. It's a really extensive process. So people choose to do this, and this is what they want to do for work. It doesn't always work out. Sometimes they don't make it through the process. As the chief said, we lose people to other departments a lot. Those are things that are outside of our control. But the best we can do is try and recruit people and get them trained and get them serving and fill those vacancies.
Right. It just seems like it's the same issue we have now. It's the same approach. Hoping. Do you have a solution or a different idea? That's something that we could all discuss, but I'm just saying I hear the problem, but it seems like the similar solution.
Well, except it's saving 18 months.
Possibly if they if they take these roles. And
I'm worried that you're a little bit you're confused about what that means. Like, what do you mean if they take these roles?
They don't have to fill these they don't have to fill these vacancies.
So if they make it through the process, they make it through field training, I swear them in as an officer, they are then an officer.
Right, if they do make it, but we have the same problem with the academy now, is that they drop out after we've trained them and we've invested.
Some do, but a lot
I just don't see how any difference in that cohort is what I'm saying. But I'm going to let other people, and I'll come back. I have another question.
Well, and actually what the chief said is when we hire laterals, they're more likely to leave, or they're maybe have the highest likelihood of leaving because they're laterals. They know they can hop.
Yeah.
And they're attractive because they've already gone through all of their training.
Thank you.
Sure.
I might have another question.
We don't take councils in session, and we don't just, that's the way we work. Councilor Moulton.
Thank you. So this, it seems to me, is a reasonable response to a couple of problems that have been identified, neither of which are new. One is the number of vacancies that have existed over the past several years in the police department. We've had quite a bit of turnover. The chief says that in the past 5 years, 49 officers have departed, not all of whom have been with the department for long, and some of them were lost during training. But that is That's pretty severe turnover. The second issue is overtime. And that is well documented. That is putting tired cops on the streets. This is a mechanism, as I see it, to formalize a process that will allow student officers to be brought into the department, and they'll be able then to take advantage of the first available training rather than having to wait for the next police academy to be scheduled, which is, it's not always on a reliable schedule. So they will be available to take advantage of that training. And the hope is, and I think it is a reasonable solution, that will reduce consequently the 14 to 20-month wait to fill vacancies. That wait contributes to all of this overtime. So in my view, we're not certain how this is going to play out, but I think it's a reasonable course of action to try. And it's not, I don't see it as locking us into, over, the long term, this particular course of action. If it doesn't work, if the student officers don't end up taking these jobs in large numbers, then maybe we'll have to look elsewhere. But to me, it seems like it's a reasonable solution right now to two problems. So I support it.
Thank you, Councilor Martin. Can I just respond real quick? Actually, you made me think of something that I think maybe speaks to your concern, Councilor Maori, which is one of the things we're trying to accomplish with this is to create a safer, better working environment for these officers. So I think one of the reasons why we're losing a lot of the lower level officers is that they're the ones who get held over. So that's how it works. Sort of the lowest rung, the newest hires are the ones who get the most mandatory holdovers. So, if we can make this feel like a more reasonable job, and where you can do it without, and then go home to your family and not be worried that you're gonna miss a birthday party because you might be held over for a second shift. If you can feel less burnt out by it, if this can feel like a safer, kind of more, a department that's more interested in the officers' well-being, then I think that is also really hopefully going to help with some of this turnover.
Okay, yeah. You're saying it's the laterals who have the highest turnover, so it's not the new hires.
We lose people at both places, but laterals have a high likelihood of, or they have a likelihood of potentially moving on. But we have, I think we have had 10 vacancies this year, so we lose people.
Right. Yeah. No, I see that. I hear that, and I think. By the way, I think it's, overall the budget is, as I said during the hearings, it's a really eloquent dance between, bringing in some exciting new projects and also dealing with the, kind of somber fiscal situation we're in and our residents are in. And so I think we all see that, and I'm really proud of how department heads have been, dealing with this kind of challenging time, and you as well as a mayor, as I said before, I really can't imagine a more challenging time to be mayor, and a more complex time. So I appreciate that. I think what my feeling is, like, if you would come with like one student officer, or if the community care department was, in 4 months we have an entire task force that was sent to alleviate some of this. And the timing seems, the timing seems premature. If this was after we had given the community care department a chance to take some of the burden off of our officers. I mean, what I see is we have an excellent department. I want us to have a healthy department. I think Chief Casper, as I said, is an excellent advocate for her department. But I see the role of counselors is to kind of look at the budget as a whole. And how do we do this equitably when we have departments with much worse situations? Like the vacancies, nothing compared to the DPW. And we're still cutting the school after a budget after a pandemic. So I guess I feel like as a counselor, I have to say, how would I spend $500,000 in 3 years on my community to keep them safe and healthy? And I feel like that has to be our role. I mean, every department has some, has some really challenging issues. And I have a lot of confidence in the chief to keep the quality that we have. So I guess what I see is, if this wanted to be an experiment, we could have tried you could come back with one officer. So we're not investing because I think we do need to own that we are increasing the financial footprint here. I mean, yes, we can come back at some time and roll it back, but municipal entities tend to take hold. And we're kind of committing we're raising the amount that we're funding the police department every year. It's the new norm now. And I just think of how much we really need land stewards and rangers and other ways to care for our community and keep people safe. And I think that I would rather let the community care department start up and see where we go with this than it doesn't seem fiscally responsible to be expanding the police department and funding the community care department at the same time. It just seems like a lot going on, and I'd like to see where that community care department goes in terms of offering support for the officers. I hear that, and that's why we responded with a whole new division and a task force to help officers. So I have a lot of faith in that, and I think that that's more, a fiscally sound thing to do right now. But overall, I think it's an excellent budget, and I'm really proud of our city and a lot of the initiatives going on there.
Thank you. May I respond briefly to that? So I hear what you're saying about it increasing what's in the police budget, but maybe perhaps the irony is that it will actually cost the city less to do this than the overtime that we're spending now. So, and we have shifts that we can't fill. So, no one's more excited about DCC than me, but we still have a baseline police department, which is reduced, right? Some of us here reduced that police department 3 years ago. So it has less FTEs than it had. And we can't fill those reduced shifts. So we need to find a way to be able to get people into those shifts.
Right, but the whole point of the division is to make the need less, and so you wouldn't need that same footprint. I mean, that was the whole.
I mean, we can debate the point of the division of community care. The point of division of community care for me is to serve our most vulnerable residents and to meet them where they are and to meet their needs, which is not what the police are trained to do or what their sort of mission is to do. So that's what the division of community care is in my eyes.
For me, that's absolutely, but it was taken out, as part of the getting back to the Police Review Commission, which was supported by the mayor and council. I mean, it was specifically to see what we can, how we can establish alternatives outside of policing to address the same issues and to support the police in those ways and taking the burdens of things that aren't their purview or that they don't feel are their, why they're there in their own words. So I hear you, but I think that's a little revisionist when you think about the whole Policing Review Commission recommendations. I mean, wasn't just a task force. I mean, we're talking about looking at other components and seeing what else we can solve in terms of in alternative ways. That's why I'm excited to start talking about lands. We have a lot of conservation land in Leeds. We really need some help regulating our lands and the garbage, and I really want to, I'd be much more excited to talk about rangers and land stewards and such, and those are kind of things that could fall in the division of community care. So I don't think it's just about meeting, I think it's about supporting officers in that way as well.
I would just say that one of the things that was very clear in the report is that there was a recognition that we need to maintain a Northampton Police Department, and it has a level of service that it needs to maintain, and that there's certain services and calls that it needs to respond to. And right now, we are not doing that.
I totally agree. I want to maintain our police, our police department. But that, right, we're not, that's why we have the community care, so that we will do that. I mean, yeah. We are going to meet, we absolutely need to meet the needs of the community. And I guess, to me, it's a question of through what entity. And we made a decision to kind of look at, to establish this division and see what else. It wasn't just about this task force. I think we need to revisit the report. It was about looking at all sorts of services. And so the police can focus on policing in the truest sense and not on, that's why I asked about what kind of calls, because, there could be alternatives to, and we already know that there are, and that there are other entities that can meet those needs. And I'd like to see that. I'd be really interested in a kind of a needs assessment or evaluation of the department in terms of its size and its needs too. I think that would be interesting. And, so that would be something that I would support in the future as well.
Thank you. Councilor Perry, did I see your hand?
Yeah. Thank you all for this discussion. I think, for me, this comes down to the fact that the chief said that we are getting the same amount of calls and we have less people to work. People have talked about this, and just from a human perspective, it's hard to ask people to do their job effectively at all when they are overworked, and they also don't feel served and protected. From a financial perspective, it seems ludicrous to be paying so much overtime. I think Councilor Moulton said this seems like a reasonable way to do some anticipatory hiring. It's not the end-all solution, but it is a way to get us there. And I have to say that, recently I had a chance to conduct interviews with the police department. I was curious about the process. I also felt that it was important that someone of color was there at the table while we're interviewing these people. And for me, it gave me a lot of perspective. I got a chance to see some of the police culture, in between interviews and just how they were interacting. But more importantly, I got to see the type of people who were applying. And our chief gave us some numbers that I think in 2015, we had 176 applicants, 2022, 56. We had much less than that this time. One thing that stood out for me was the number of people of color and women who were applying. What also stood out to me was, I asked the question, I said, well, some of these candidates, they might not be right for the police department, but what about the Division of Community Care? And our chief actually said that, yes, that's what they take into account as well. So there is a way to move people over there. If someone, a lot of these folks were able to see that Northampton was a unique city. And I think that's important. Sometimes, when we talk about defunding the police in this movement, overall, I think it is the right thing to do, but it is something that requires a microscopic lens on each place. Northampton and things that work here do not work in other cities. But, the thing that, again, it goes back to not having enough people. And so when we did these interviews, there were a couple candidates which were, pretty excellent. We all agreed could be people who could make it to the force. But as it stands right now, we'd have to wait until someone retires. So we did these interviews weeks ago. We could, with this, I'm assuming we could start the process now by hiring and bringing them on, which I think, one, will lead to more retention. So say if you went through the interview process and we were interested in you, but you need a job, or you're looking, you're going to be more prone to go somewhere else. I think that this will allow folks to get an insight into what our community is like and see if it's right for them. Granted, there's no guarantee that these people will be police officers, but again, it will start this process much sooner. So again, if after we had done these interviews, there was a process to start these people, we would be saving ourselves months. So the gap in between when someone retires and when someone is hired for the process, if we can close that gap, we will start closing the overtime. And I think that was the piece you might have been missing.
Yeah, no, I don't think I'm missing it. I just think I have a different, that's why I'm saying, it's not that I don't think we should address the problem, I'm just disagreeing about how we're going about addressing it. I think, the turnover issue was there well before any cuts to the budget. I used to attend meetings before I was on council. And there's a crisis in policing, and it's real, and it's national, and it needs, we really all need to kind of think about what to do about that. But I just think that the timing for me, if this was after we had started the community care department and we're doing things to support the police in that way by taking calls away, that would be a different story. But 4 months before we, launched this huge initiative in our city, doesn't seem like good timing, especially when I just think about, there's nothing neutral. Money isn't neutral, right? It's not just on the side, something is not going to be funded. And I hear that we're paying overtime, but if the reality is we're establishing, salaried positions that will need cost of living, retirement, all that every year, and that will grow every year, and that will be the new norm. And I hear the problem, but I'd like a pause until we get the community care division going. That will take some of the pressure off of our police. And so that's why I think that we have similar. I think we just want to go about it in a different way. And I'm really trying to think about all the work the Police Review Commission did and their recommendations. And I just, I think this is financially, not.
So, are there other counselors who haven't spoken yet? Or Counselor
I think the norm that has developed over time has been this norm of being understaffed and ballooning overtime. The Police Review Commission, and we're talking all about this report that a lot of people worked on, and is not nearly, in my reading of it, as monolithic as some advocates for cutting the budget have made it sound. It was a nuanced and complicated and thoughtful document, and one of the big things that I distinctly, that I know came out of it, was a real concern about the safety issues caused by tired officers, overworked officers, and that's the norm that exists. The other thing too is that the history of policing, and with the deinstitutionalization movement, through the 70s and 80s and 90s, meant that police did what they always did, and then the new norm became that we added a bunch of things to their plate and then didn't fund it. And we are, to our credit and to the city's credit, trying to uncouple that again. We're trying to figure out a way within the context of these things. And I think that's to our credit. I was not on the council when the vote to cut the budget initially happened. But I said then, when I was campaigning, and I will say now, that that this country and the city was at an inflection point in 2020 after George Floyd, and that this body and this city and our values took a pause and said, let's think about this, and made that cut. And there's a lot of people who faulted that council and the folks who were around at that time who did that, but I would defend that move. I would not be in the same position to defend it, I think, as a resident of the city and now on this body, if we hadn't done what we had done, which was convene that commission. Mm-hmm. And work so hard to come up with a path forward that reflects the city's values. So I appreciate all the thought that's going into, like, what are we doing and how are we doing it? How are we carrying this out? And everybody, people are just going to disagree whether or not we are consistent with it. But I really do see that this is a nuanced situation. I think that the overtime situation and the gap that we're trying to close with this is a very reasonable response and a very reasonable thing to try. I don't see it as calcifying. Like, I don't see anything about this that won't be revisited year over year as we see if it works or not. If anything, and so it is a little bit of an experiment. The DCC is much more of an experiment. And so I think to pen any sort of aspirations or expectations about what it will or won't take away from the police, from what the police are having to respond to, that seems premature to me at this point in time. If we lived in a perfect world, I would love to see DCC, up and running with double the staff that it's going to have. I would love to see, we are doing this, and it's an experiment, and I think we can all agree we would like to be in a position to do more. But we have an existing police department. It was agreed in the commission. I think there's a certain number and kinds of responses that that we agree the police are going to continue to respond to, and that's what I hear is not being filled. That's what I hear is not being met. And I just don't see anything responsible or safe for the community or for the officers involved that involves continuing to just keep doing what we're doing. So I'm supportive of this. I'm supportive of the general budget. I'm supportive of this as a path forward to see if it will address these concerns that Chief Casper has, and as a bridge to give the DCC time to grow and become what it's going to be and find out. We all find it together if it's going to meet the needs that we hope and wish it will. I want to pivot just a moment to also just echo what others have said, that, thank you, Mayor. This is, and to all the department heads, this is an astounding amount of work and thought that's reflected in this, and promises kept, I think, in terms of the CAPA is extraordinary. DCC is extraordinary that we're the city that's moving forward on this, and the thought and care that has gone in from all the department heads. The old school infrastructure, DPW element of this that Donna puts together, and how patiently she explains how everything works to us all, and even in the face of having to bring some bad news, it's extraordinary, delicate work, and so I can't say enough. I would also say to the mayor as well, I'm glad that we chose the path forward on school funding. Oh, we're not there yet. This is general fund. I'll come back to that. So, so at any rate, as far as the things that go into this, I'm supportive of this budget. I am supportive of this as a solution in the grand scheme of things. These we're talking a lot about these 3 spots, but it's in the context of a much bigger picture that I'm very comfortable and proud of to say that this is, not a good budget. It's a path forward on many things. It's instituting many new ideas, and we're not all going to agree on everything all the time, but overall, I'm ready to vote for this.
Trying to respond.
Are there, Councilor Gore and then...
Oh, sure.
Well, I want to say thank you for this budget to the mayor and to the department. And I do agree with the Councilor Maori that I do think it's kind of preemptive to hire the 3 student officers before we get the Department of Community Care off the ground. I was always really excited about the Department of Community Care before I became a city councilor. It's something that the community called for. It's something that the Northampton Policing Review Commission called for. And I would love to see how that can work before we kind of institute this kind of new hires in the police department. And I understand the struggle that they're having with overtime. I understand the financial burden of paying that overtime. And I do wish that there was a different solution than hiring 3 officers. I do think that adds to the footprint of policing, and that's exactly what the Northampton Policing Review Commission was put together to kind of put a hold to the footprint of policing. And I agree with a lot of things in the budget. CAPA is that's another department that I'm really excited about. I think that, funding the schools with the fiscal stability fund is a good idea. However, there's still going to be cuts to the schools, which is not great. I don't feel I can support adding these 3 new officers. It's just not something that's aligned with my values, and I think of values of a lot of community members that we've heard from. And I just want those voices to be heard and acknowledged during our discussion. So, yeah, that's all I have to say. Thanks.
You wanted to respond?
Yeah, I just wanted to respond that there's no way that I want to continue, you said that, we continue and going the way we're going, and I totally agree with you. We can't do that, and that was the whole point. And that's actually the only other time, I voted no on a budget was because I thought we needed to get the community care department up and running as soon as possible because of what we, because of this plan to alleviate some of the burden of these, things that shouldn't be in policing. And so if that were the case, I wouldn't, that's not the case that I want, that I think we'd be continuing doing what we're doing. That's precisely why we have this division. And I don't think it's more of an experiment. There's actually a lot more data on these mental health task force than when we asked Chief Casper where she got this idea for the student officers, and there really wasn't a precedent. I'm not saying it's not worth, I understand why she wants them, but I'm just saying I don't think it's that experimental. I think there's a lot of data on these alternatives to policing and other more community-led initiatives to take the burden off of police. So yeah, I think we're actually all probably in agreement that we don't want things to continue as they are. And I think we just maybe disagree on the solution for that. And I think it's really healthy actually when this council doesn't always agree. We tend to do it a lot, and I think and that other councils' cultures are very different, I've noticed, in other places. So I think it's a sign of a really thoughtful and healthy council and city government if we sometimes don't agree. I certainly respect everyone here, and I think we, I'll just leave it at that.
Councilor Jarrett. Mayor, did you want to respond, or?
No, well, I just wanted to clarify something, but Councilor Jarrett can certainly.
Go ahead.
Okay. Thanks. Yeah, I like when we feel free to express our differing opinions, and I think we all vote with our conscience, and I respect everyone here. So I wanted to talk about a little bit about the issue of responding to calls. So adding these 3 officers is not going to help our issue of being able to respond to calls, but the DCC we hope will, and so that's just great that we'll be able to divert some of those calls, and then the calls that sometimes are not being responded, there will be someone to respond to them. That's just having the right person respond to the right thing. That's moving in that direction. So I kind of wanted to just sort of speak a little bit about how we need a complete change in how we address public safety. You know, I certainly believe the Northampton Police Department is a very well-run department. The vast majority of officers do a good job. And I just wanted to speak to kind of the basic problems with the approach of policing, the culture of policing, whether it's the military titles that they have, the presenting an armed response to every interaction when an armed response is so rarely needed. And, you know, I sometimes think, and I know a lot of other people have thought about how could we create a new public safety department that people would want to work at, will be supported by the community, will really understand that the power over approach, or even the appearance of it, is a very last resort. And I know that a vision like that does not come from a city council making cuts. I mean, although that cut certainly led to a great vision, but it will come from, you know, this broad coalition of people demanding change, and, you know, it would require a mayor to lead that vision into reality with the support of many others. So coming back to our current situation, you know, I think that a minimum amount of well-rested staff is needed to respond to simultaneous emergencies. And right now, that is the police. And one thing I feel I've learned in my time as a city councilor is that the people who are working for our city should be supported and not asked to dangerously overwork. And I don't think that we are locking this in. This is an approach, you know, as long as we let people finish their training, we could remove these positions, and we would that they would simply shift over into the permanent positions.
That's right.
And could this, you know, I hear Councilor Mayor's concerns, and, you know, could this amount of money be better spent elsewhere? There are a lot of very deserving places for this amount of money. Community care, DPW, schools come to mind, and so I'm conflicted, but I am choosing to trust the mayor to make a balanced decision, and I'll be supporting this budget. And just other areas of the budget, you know, I can echo a lot of what Councilor Elkins said, and I think it's we're doing some exciting things. I always have a bit of trepidation about just the amount of money that's getting spent on different aspects, and the additions that we're adding. But at the same time, we have to look at what is the cost of inaction. And with the climate department, that is very clear. If we, you know, just from, we have to respond to the changing climate, and every piece that we do to reduce the amount of carbon that we're putting out, that has a future effect of savings. So the cost of inaction is very high. Same with the Resilience Hub. And, you know, if we don't provide for the people who need the most care, then that has all these impacts in the emergency room, in policing, in so many other areas. So we have to consider the costs of inaction, and with that in mind, I support the expanded departments that we are looking at. Well, thank you.
You can go, Councilor, and then I'm going to go. Go ahead.
I think that's appropriate, President Nash. Thank you. This is a healthy discussion that I, as a councilor, appreciate. And I think that as stewards of taxpayers' money, that we should be feeling that we can air our differing opinions and respectfully and listen to each other. Councilor Elkins is correct that the Northampton Police and Review Commission did address the issue of concern about safety issues resulting from tired officers. And just to briefly quote one sentence from that report, it said, "We're concerned about officers overworking, which represents potential danger to the community, and that they are driving at high speeds and carrying weapons." End quote. This addition of the 3 student officers directly addresses that concern. In terms of the suggestion that Councilors Maori and Gore make about waiting until DCC is up and running, you know, I think we're able to do both. I think that we can allow this is going to be a year of transition, and we can allow DCC starting September 1st to be part of the response, as the mayor says, to the most vulnerable people in the community. And let's see how that goes. On a parallel track, at the same time, we are being asked to approve $166,000 for the 3 student officers. They're not mutually exclusive. The mayor and her team have found a way to allow us to do both in the next fiscal year while keeping the budget to under a 5% increase. So I'm comfortable with, let's see what happens with both of those efforts. And while I have the floor, I do want to join with others and say thank you for a very creative budget that addresses my priorities: education, the Department of Climate Action, and the staffing of the Division of Community Care.
Go ahead. I just want to thank you all of you. Thank you for your kind words about this budget. I think there's some really exciting things in it as well. Councilor Gore, I just wanted to take a second, and I don't want to belabor it, but I just want to make sure that I'm clear that, so right now, in this fiscal year we're sitting in right now, we have 60 sworn officers. This budget is for 60 sworn officers. We are not increasing 3 additional officers. This is just creating, again, that space so that we can get people into the training to fill vacancies. So this is not actually adding 3 officers. Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to make that point.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. So, yeah, I said lots of really nice things at the budget hearing last week about your budget. Your budget, this is great. You and Director Nardi and all of the staff, you've done amazing work. You know, our job is to ask questions and try to poke holes in what you guys have put together. And time and again, as we go through this, there's an answer, there's a clear plan, and the numbers all add up. It all makes sense, and this is terrific work. So thank you. And I think we're all pretty much in agreement on that. As a group, I think the thing that we still, you know, that we as a community are still grappling with is, you know, the question that was posed to this community back in 2020, and the answers are not easy, and that a few of you were here that night, those many nights in 2020, when we deliberated that budget and made decisions around cutting the budget, and also starting the process for the Policing Review Commission. Right. And that it was very difficult for the folks in that room, and anybody who was there, you've never been in anything like that, and you won't be again, I hope. That it was grueling decision making, and that so our police, we have a terrific police department. And I think that despite all of these discussions we're having, that needs to be trumpeted by this council and by folks in this community, because that, I think, that decision to cut the police budget has been very difficult for our police force to understand. That for them, it was a chink in the morale for them. And they've been serving over there all of this time. Tammy mentioned, that event at the high school, and I didn't know all of those details, but they showed up. And that's what they've been doing. And that I think that that when we took that act as a council, that was an aspect of it that I think we as a council and a community need to heal. Yeah, we can argue about, does this work? These 3 student officers, is this going to really work? Okay, but the important thing is that that decision wasn't saying you're a bad police department, because they're a terrific police department. They're very thoughtful. Councilor Perry, has mentioned he's been involved in police interviews recently, and I'm really grateful he's been doing that. I've been doing that for the 3 years prior, and the level of thoughtfulness that goes on in that hiring process. I mean, it's really interesting to I'm like, I think this person's pretty good. And then to hear them, go around the room with the panel and like, no, this worries me. And it's all of the concerns that all of the people in our community are worried about. It's like, are they going to be thoughtful enough when they get out on the street? The folks that we hire with the NPD, I can tell you, they're not looking for jarheads. They don't want them. All right? Anybody who likes guns, it's like, okay, yeah, you like guns. Oftentimes it just scratches them off right there. We're looking for unique personalities. We're looking for folks who, might have dabbled in social work school. They've done customer service before. They have people skills. They have life experiences. We're not looking for 18-year-olds, who, either want to go to the Army or be a cop. We're looking for people who are going to be thoughtful when they get out on the street. I've had the privilege of Jody sitting there with me, all alone in the community room. She's scratching it all out on the board there of like how all of these positions lay out, and it's complicated. But the bottom line of what they're dealing with is the same thing that we heard from Chief Davin. We've heard from Donna, which is there's this hiring, there's a talent shortage, and how do you address it? Well, Chief Davin's been reaching out. He's got some sort of arrangement with Smith folk. I know that in the, and for DPW in the past, one of the things we had was that we could hire people and train them to get their CDLs rather than have to hire them with their CDLs. That option's been taken away. What we're looking at is there's a change in the pipeline since the pandemic of how to hire people. Talk to any other community organization right now. They're all looking for talent. Right. Talk to school systems, talk to human service agencies, and what is going on here is the same thing. And it's how do you secure that talented, unique individual who's going to stand, meet our standards for a police officer. And the way to do that, it's a very elegant solution. It's like, rather than wait for the opening to appear when somebody retires, that you actually get somebody in the pipeline. Northampton has a reputation for being our officers are recruited by other departments because they get well trained. They come here. We're a city with all sorts of activities that go on. It's not like you're just sitting there with a radar gun. You're doing all sorts of. You're working with community organizations. By the time, if you work here for 5 years, you're ready to go anywhere. So, yeah, people recruit them, and we lose a lot of people to the state police because they're good officers. So Anyway, I just want to say, we got a great police department. There's probably 5 other cities within 50 miles that would trade for our police department right now. And so, all right, enough about it. So that's my thing about the police, and thank you to the NPD and Chief Casper. I think, you know what, I think I'm just going to leave it at that. I just want to thank Mayor for, all of the work here, and thank you for listening. Counselors, any other thoughts?
Just wanted to clarify that we aren't hiring 3 new officers, but we are hiring 3 new salaried positions. I just want to be clear about that. 3 new salaried positions.
3 student
And
officers.
thank you.
I move to approve the...
Second it. How's that one?
Okay, a motion made by Counselor Moulton, seconded by Counselor Labarge to approve the general fund budget without the parking division maintenance OM.
Right.
Did I get it right, Laura? Is she there?
Where is she?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Any discussion on approving the general fund budget without the parking division maintenance OM? Laura, roll call, please.
Counselor Jarrett.
Yes.
Counselor Labarge.
Yes.
Counselor Maori.
No.
Counselor Moulton.
Yes.
Counselor Nash.
Yes.
Counselor Perry.
Yes.
Counselor Elkins.
Yes.
Counselor Foster.
Yes.
And Counselor Gore.
No.
Okay. That passes, is it 7-2?
Yes.
Okay. And now, we are going to take up the other aspect of the divided question, which is the OM parking division maintenance OM budget. And Counselor Jarrett will step out. And once he's out, I will entertain a motion to
Move to approve?
move to approve.
On OM?
I would second that.
Okay, motion made by Counselor Maori, seconded by Counselor Perry on the parking division maintenance OM budget. Any discussion? Hearing none. Laura, roll call, please.
Counselor Labarge.
Yes.
Counselor Maori.
Yes.
Counselor Moulton.
Yes.
Counselor Nash.
Yes.
Counselor Perry.
Yes.
Counselor Elkins.
Yes.
Counselor Foster.
Yes.
Counselor Gore.
Yes.
And Counselor Jarrett is recused.
Okay, and so it passed 8-0?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, next. Now we need to, I will entertain a motion to approve the entire FY 2024 general fund budget. Right, Laura?
Yes, the order itself, Order 23-316.
Correct. Does anybody have questions? Counselor Maori?
So what was the first vote that we voted? We voted.
So
the
we
order- the order
separated.
and the-
We separated it.
Separated, we vote on both items. We need to vote on the entire order with them folded back together.
Okay, so that, and so,
That's
And
why
that's,
he had
and
to-
Counselor Jarrett will be recusing himself during that.
I don't remember us doing it that way.
Yeah, it's the 3 votes. I couldn't explain it 3 years ago.
Right.
I voted no, and then yes. Go ahead.
Do we vote the same as we voted on the first one, where the Counselor Jarrett?
You have the choice of, yeah, this is a good question. So, there's you can, yeah, so your vote on the general fund budget with the OM removed was, you can keep it the same, or, and you can still have that opinion with it including the OM, or you can change your vote, or you can vote the same. So, do we have a motion yet?
I will move to approve the general, what is it, 23,316.
Second.
Yeah, you have the right number, good.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, motion made by Counselor Perry, seconded by Counselor Elkins to approve the FY 2024 general fund budget. Any further discussion?
Rachel?
Laura, roll call, please.
Rachel, you had something?
No, I was just, so,
Oh, did I miss something?
well,
Go ahead.
maybe I'm over, being philosophical, but if we divided them,
Yeah.
and in my example, I voted no on one part and yes on another, and now so it almost negates, it feels like if I vote no on the general fund budget, I've already voted yes for part of it. It's just interesting. I'll have to think about it. It seems like it negates the second part of the first vote. Does that make any sense? Maybe I'm tired.
So, to reflect on my vote 3 years ago, where I voted no, and then I voted yes. So I voted no because I did not vote to amend the budget to cut the police department by 10%. But once it was clear that we were back at the general fund, I was fine with the general fund budget as a document and as for the work that had been done, and I voted yes at that point. So,
Well, it's not just a document, it's the actual budget. Okay.
for this order, once it got to the entirety of the order.
Okay.
I know we're kind of digressing here.
Was that a vote to amend back then, that you vote on individually?
It was yes, it was an amendment.
So then we have voted, because there was an amendment here. We just separated it into two pieces.
Right, there was the vote for the amendment, there was the vote because it was separated, and then there was the vote, which we're about to have.
Right, but we have voted on everything.
Yes, but we need to vote on the order, which is,
That wasn't what we were doing before?
no, Laura.
Let Laura speak.
The earlier vote was on the budget in conceptual format to allow Councilor Jarrett's participation because he cannot vote on this order. So it was an exercise to allow his participation, but now you are voting to approve the order because this is the form in which it must be presented to the Department of Revenue. We've been told that it's not possible to separate it. It has to be approved in this format. So I don't know if that helps. But.
That does help. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you, Laura. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Do councilors want to recess for a minute to think about what they're going to do?
No,
I'm fine with that. Are you all ready? Okay. Laura, roll call, please. On, go ahead.
On the order?
Yeah, we know what we're voting on.
Councilor Maori.
No.
Councilor Moulton.
Yes.
Councilor Nash.
Yes.
Councilor Perry.
Yes.
Councilor Elkins.
Yes.
Councilor Foster.
Yes.
Councilor Gore.
No.
Councilor Jarrett is recused, and Councilor Labarge.
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So what do we got, Laura?
I've got 6-2.
6-2.
Two opposed. Councilor Maori and Councilor Gore.
Okay, so it's approved.
Yes.
All right. I would like to take a recess.
Great.
Let's get back at, we'll be back at 9:20. Take a 12-minute
We're
break.
going to hear your car, Marion. Thank you, Laura, for, and very complicated. It was actually much, imagine like we did that when we were all, like a lot of us were new counselors, and we had an amendment.
Okay, welcome back. We are in the middle of a number of financial orders related to the FY 2024 budget. And counselors, anybody want to think about putting some things together here as a group?
I will.
Counselor Jarrett.
I move 23.317, sewer enterprise fund budget, 23.318, the water enterprise budget, 23.320, the stormwater and flood control enterprise budget, and 23.321, an order to approve fiscal year 2024 revolving funds. I move them for approval.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion made by Counselor Jarrett, seconded by Counselor Perry to move items, let's see, was that B, C, E, and F as a group? Any discussion on this motion? Hearing none. Laura, roll call, please.
Counselor Moulton.
Yes.
Counselor Nash.
Yes.
Counselor Perry.
Yes.
Counselor Elkins.
Yes.
Counselor Foster.
Yes.
Counselor Gore.
Yes.
Counselor Jarrett.
Yes.
Counselor Labarge.
Yes.
And Counselor Maori.
Yes.
Okay. Items. I'm going to read them because there's a lot of money here. 23.317, in order to approve FY 2024 sewer enterprise fund budget. Item 23.318, in order to approve FY 2024 water enterprise fund budget. Item 23.320, in order to approve FY 2024 stormwater and flood control enterprise fund budget. In item 23.321, in order to approve FY 2024 revolving funds. Those have all been approved, which leaves us with item 23.319. Counselor Jarrett, is there something you'd like to say?
Yes, thank you. So as a member of the Pedal People Cooperative, I have a financial interest larger than the average resident in the decisions that are made regarding the Locust Street Transfer Center, which is part of the Solid Waste Enterprise Fund, so I'll be recusing myself for this item.
Thank you. Okay. I will now entertain a motion to approve this item.
I would move to approve Order 23.319.
Second.
Counselor Elkins made the motion, and who seconded it?
For Moulton?
I thought it was over on this side.
Counselor Moulton.
Counselor Moulton. Okay, and any discussion? And by the way, we're voting on, in order to approve FY 2024 Solid Waste Enterprise Fund budget. Laura, roll call, please.
Counselor Nash.
Yes.
Counselor Perry.
Yes.
Counselor Elkins.
Yes.
Counselor Foster.
Yes.
Counselor Gore.
Yes.
Counselor Labarge.
Yes.
Counselor Maori.
Yes.
And Counselor Moulton.
Yes.
Okay, the solid waste fund budget has been approved. Now we're on to ordinances. And we have a number of ordinances that are here in first reading, and so they're here for referral. We have items A through E, which have to do with compensation of elected officials. These are all items that you guys had requested that I bring forward some ordinances to, so we would have something to vote on in terms of compensation. You will see that the, by and large, everything's pretty much the same. I did some rounding off to the nearest 100. And in the case of I think in terms of the school committee folks, it went down $12. And I think in the case of counselors, it went down a little too. We heard people suggesting rounded numbers, and so that's what I'm presenting here tonight to you. And that, I guess if people want to round counselor compensation up to 17 even, you can consider that, but this is what I'm presenting tonight.
I'll move referral to legislative matters.
And you'd like to move them as a group?
As a group, please.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Counselor Moulton and seconded by Counselor Elkins to refer these to legislative matters. Just to be clear, this has to do with the compensation of the mayor. It has to do with compensation of counselors, the trustees of Smith Voc, and for school committee. Laura, roll call, please.
Councilor Perry.
Yes.
Councilor Elkins.
Yes.
Councilor Foster.
Yes.
Councilor Gore.
Yes.
Councilor Jarrett.
Yes.
Councilor Labarge.
Yes.
Councilor Maori.
Yes.
Councilor Moulton.
Yes.
And Councilor Nash.
Yes.
Counselor Nash, what is the date of this going to legislative matters?
But go ahead, Councilor Jarrett.
So this will be Monday, June 12th at 5 p.m. That will be in person here at City Council chambers, as well as it will be hybrid, so people can participate remotely. And
Thank you.
I do encourage folks to spread the word about that. I know this is an important topic.
It's going to be a hop-in meeting. This is one of several items that will be interesting. Okay, so those have been moved as a group to legislative matters. Next up, we have two orders that I would entertain moving forward as a group.
Councilor Nash?
Yes.
So these two orders are related to trash collection. As I'm a member of a business that does trash collection, I will need to recuse myself for these two ordinances.
Thank you.
Yep.
I would move to refer items 23.331 and 23.332 to legislative matters.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Elkins and seconded by Councilor Labarge for an ordinance to clarify Section 312-25 and an ordinance to add fine for violation of 312-25 to legislative matters. Any discussion on this?
Is this on the same date too, June 12th?
Yes, it will be a hop-in meeting.
Yes.
So I just want to, I want to thank Councilor Labarge and Councilor Moulton for working with me on this. There's a bit of a work in progress going on here that relative to, we're pretty sure we have the language straight, working with Attorney Seawald around the trash haulers. But as we're improving and changing things, it's bringing into, we need to reword the portion around deliveries and look at the impacts of what that might be. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of frame how things are going there. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Laura, roll call.
Councilor Elkins.
Yes.
Councilor Foster.
Yes.
Councilor Gore.
Yes.
Councilor Labarge.
Yes.
Councilor Maori.
Yes.
Councilor Moulton.
Yes.
Councilor Nash.
Yes.
And Councilor Perry.
Yes.
Okay. Those will be discussed at legislative matters, and we're now welcoming Councilor Jarrett back, and I'm hoping he's going to make a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Seconded.
Oh, there's an announcement. Hold it.
I will retract.
I like how you left
You promised me like hours
I did.
ago.
I forgot. Go ahead, Mayor.
Okay.
I got my cookie, I'm good.
First of all, I wanted to again say congratulations to the Smith Folk Agricultural High School's class of 2023 who graduated this evening. I want to give pre-congratulations to the Northampton High School class of 2023 who will be graduating on Sunday. I also want to announce that the Human Rights Commission is looking for new members. They have some current and some expected vacancies, and the chair and I are trying to plan for those vacancies. So a little information, they meet monthly, 6:30, third Wednesday of the month, and they are currently meeting just remotely, I believe, but when they do meet in person or hybrid, it's right here in this room in council chambers. And the Human Rights Commission promotes human rights in the city of Northampton and advocates for and is an information resource for those rights guaranteed by local, state, and or federal law on the basis of race or color, gender, physical or mental ability, religion, socioeconomic status, ethnic or national origin, sexual identification or orientation, or age for all persons within the city of Northampton. So if anyone's interested in being on the Human Rights Commission, we would love for you to go to the city website and fill out an application under boards and commissions. And please, councilors, spread the word that there are some vacancies there. Thank you. And now I am incredibly pleased to be able to announce to the council that I have accepted and exercised the option on 298 Main Street, the former Baptist church, for the Resilience Hub. So both parties have now signed this agreement. It's huge. This is huge. So we both signed the option, and the city will be closing on the property within the month. So we reached a negotiated final price of $3,175,000, and I just was really happy to be able to celebrate this huge milestone with all of you this evening. And we will now be working with Community Action Pioneer Valley to formalize an agreement with them as the lead agency managing the hub and coordinating it. And we will quickly start moving on plans for building out and finishing the spaces for the hub and also for the Division of Community Care. So it's just, I couldn't be happier to be able to share that with you today.
Nice work.
Thank you.
I'll buy you a copy later. We'll push the press release out.
Okay, I'll.
So we got to hear it first.
You did. You got it.
Yeah.
PR privilege, that's nice.
Okay, now you ready?
All right, y'all.
I am done.
Move to adjourn.
Second it.
It's not over there, is
We
it?
already voted on it.
Motion made by Councilor Garrett, seconded by Councilor Elkins, very quickly.
Aye.
And Laura, roll call, please.
Councilor Foster,
Yes.
Councilor Gore,
Yes.
Councilor Jarrett,
Yes.
Councilor Labarge,
Yes.
Councilor Maori,
Yes.
Councilor Moulton,
Yes.
Councilor Nash,
Yes.
Councilor Perry,
Yes.
and Councilor Elkins.
Yes.
Okay, we are now adjourned. Laura, I was wrong by 33 minutes.
You were close. 9:30.
Hi, Joella.